The more I play with this unit and get to know it, I enjoy it. I think I made a good choice between buy something more expensive, will never use the features. You buy something too cheap, there may be features you want. So something that's reasonably priced and not hurting your pocketbook, and yet it accomplishes and gives you room to grow if you want to increase your knowledge on this. Love it. Okay, this is a test. Looks good. Okay. The purpose of this video is to introduce us to, I guess it's an introduction, go through some of the settings, configurations, and what some of those items that we see in the menu means, and how to set them. I noticed in several other manufacturers' manuals and comments made online, they recommend that you connect these little coaxial cables that come with it to your Nano, like that. Reason for it? It eliminates wear on the VNA main unit connectors. Once these connectors wear out or break, or you kind of put a lot of pressure on it through weight of other connectors, you could end up having a very short life with these units. So I'm going to start doing that. And so when you do your calibration, leave these attached. And I have to admit, it is much easier to make attachments because you have a larger area for both hands to do the connection. So take advantage because these cables are cheap to replace. If you have not noticed, along here you see some characters. Okay, and the display will show figures from CO, C1, C2, C3, C4. This would correspond to the calibration data that is loaded. An E indicates an enhanced response calibration is enabled. So not that you need to be aware of it, but it helps to understand what it means. And there's another one, SOLT, indicates that the corresponding short, open, load, and through standards have been measured. So that would suggest you should see at least that in there after you calibrate. Okay, in here, in yellow, in this particular case, normally it would be two different colors, but I haven't bothered setting anything yet. You will get information in the yellow, or whatever color the trace you have active, the channel, like we'll say channel S1, S2, format. I'll tell you the format and tell you what the scale is, and then the current value. So you have 4 pieces of information on that one line. So if you want to know how to read it, and the current value would be the figure at the end. So that's, generally speaking, that's probably what you're going to look for. Oh, and on this unit you have a little battery indicator. Okay, so you'll know when you need to charge it up. I've been using USB-C to USB-C, the cables that I use for my Apple devices, and it seems to work great. Okay, let us go to the home page. the config menu. Oops, I just hit display. It will save your general instrument settings. It will not set or save any calibrations. It will only save information like a touch screen calibration information, where you actually check to see how responsive your touch screen is. You can check it out and set it. The grid color, the trace colors. So this is where you will save that information. And it does not apply to calibration settings at all. That's a different place. And let's see, go back here, config. Now DFU. This is a way to put your Nano into programming mode. Reset and enter DFU. Or you can use the squeeze the roller button and power up. Which you probably would do if for some reason the thing locked up and you can't access the menu. But generally, that's probably the best place to go. Okay, let's go back. Brightness default is 70%. Version March 12, 2023. And this is where you can save the config, your touch cal, your touch test, expert setting. Not, oh yes, this is where you set your date and time. There's several other things which I have to check out more. Clear config, okay. There's an option to clear and dump firmware, okay. Well, that's good to know. Back. There we go. Okay. The very basic measurement sequence would be to go to stimulus, go to start, stop, and perform your calibration. Then you want to save it. And then you connect the device under test. And if you see the letters DUT, Delta Uniform Tango, they're referring to device under test. Okay. In my case, when I went to stimulus, you hit the start, enter the frequency you want. And, my default was 3.5. You'll see a keypad hitting 3.5. If you make a mistake, 3 point, let's say I put 4 in there. There, I can correct it. And then select either gig, meg, or kilo. It's megahertz, so let's go there. 3.5. Again, the stop frequency, 30 megahertz. In my case, it's the same procedure. The zero span, this probably be the setting you use, I think, for like measuring the length of your coax, which is one frequency sent continuously without frequency sweep. That's what the purpose of that zero span is, I believe. And sweep points, I like to set it at 401. It gives it a higher resolution. Not all Nano devices. I think the lower end may only support 101. Actually, I noticed there's a lot of extra features, these extra menu items, in comparison to other units that I've been looking at. But yeah, that CW, which is continuous without frequency sweep, that I'd probably be using often, so it's good for me to know that. Okay, let me go back. And I should be selecting on this side, calibrate. Calibrate. Okay. I've been getting a little bit of conflict information on this, but I think I'm starting to figure it out. First thing you need to do is do cal and a reset. And I think I have to go back one for that. There you go. Reset cal range and reset. I'm going to hit reset. I'm not 100% sure whether I should do the cal reset range, but let's find out. Okay, let's do both. There you go. They recommend you do that each time before you do the open, short, and load. I guess it will give you confidence in your figures. So, and then of course, another area that may confuse people is the use of some of the terms. Port 1 and 2. This is port 1 and this is port 2. Where the confusion can start, you'll see expressions like channel 0 referring to port 1, channel 1 referring to port 2. So you have to be aware of the two differences, otherwise you may end up doing a wrong step. So something to keep in mind. Okay, here's another interesting area. Port 2. They are saying to attach a load on port 2, which is this one. So let me do that now. I'll just pause. Okay, I'll just move this forward. So I got a load put on port 2. After doing that, connect the open standard to port 1 and click open. Well, the open standard would be this one right here, this one right here, okay? I'll pause. Okay, just to illustrate what I did, I have this cable and I installed a bullet and this open standard. Now I hit open. And it's scanning. It takes a little bit longer when you got 401 points, a higher resolution. Okay, next step. Okay, I pause so you're not watching dead videos. Okay, same thing. I took the load and I put the short on, this one. Okay, let me hit the short. There she goes. And it's interesting, you'll get a little bit of information as to what's going on. Okay, this is another area that seems to have contradictions. Now that we've done the open and short, it's asking for us to put a load on this. But the unit only comes with one load unit, which is right over here. So I don't have a second one. And I'm just wondering if this may be specific to certain models, or there's another option. I can use this cable and connect it like this. That is what you would use to do the through. What's nice about having a load on port 2, it's less likely to have noise. So for now, I'll just take this one off. I have an extra load coming in, so I'll be able to test if it makes a difference. I'm sure there'll be a slight improvement. Okay, but for this procedure, we'll use this method, hit load. Okay, that's done. Okay, the next step I'm going to do is the through. And basically you use this coaxial cable and screw it to both ends like this. Okay, put that back into view. I hit through. And it's scanning complete. Okay. Now we disconnect port 1 end of the cable. I'm going to be using port 1, so I'll just disconnect it this end here for now. Okay, that's done. Disconnected. It's interesting, you see the lettering here on the side. Okay. Now it says to click done. That's something I haven't been doing in the past, and I think there's a reason for it. Let's find out. Done. Aha. It allows me to save it. I'm going to rewrite what's in there already. And save 0. Okay, what I did there was what they call a SALT, calibration with cable. It's the same procedure without a calibration with cable. It's the same way, so no change. Okay, there's another interesting information here. Let's go back. We go to display. We go to trace. I've ran into a bit of hassle with this, trying to figure this out at first. Apparently, you only can have one trace active. Okay, maybe I should change the wording a little bit. You can only change the format of the active trace. So in this case, trace 0 is active. And if I go back, format SWR. If I try to format the S21, which is set for true, I'll lose whatever I have with the other one. So keep that in mind. Oops, I think I may have hit back. Let's go and trace. There we go. And as a refresher, terminology. When they say channel 0, it corresponds to port 1. When they say channel 1, it corresponds to port 2. And channel 0 is the S parameter for S11. And channel 1 is the S parameter for S21. It's easy to get this confused, and you can end up messing your settings if you don't appreciate the terminology here. Something to keep in mind. Okay, let's go back. Let's go to format. Yeah. Log mag, which is in decibels per division. We have phase. It's a 90 degree by default, but it goes from -180 to +180. The delay, either pico or nanoseconds. Smith chart, which is the one I tend to use a lot. Impedance scale. And the other one is standing wave ratio. And scale can be shown from 1, 0.1, or 0.01 per division. So you can go down pretty low. And we have resistance and reactance. Resistance will be ohms per division. Reactance will be ohms per division. Okay, I think that's it on that one. Okay, the next part that is of interest to me, let's go back. Transform. Okay, transform is transforming frequency into what I call domain data. So I'll be using this to measure the length of my coaxial cable, the quality, the condition. Let's say I have 200-300 feet of cable strung somewhere and wondering what the problem is. I go to measure it knowing I got at least 300 feet, but it tells me it's only 100 feet. So it would tell me that there's a problem at the 100-foot point. So, and plus I can determine the loss. Over the years, coaxial cables can get damaged, contaminated. I know the foam ones in particular years ago outside, the jackets weren't UV type. I think they are now. Or moisture would get into the foam. And after a while, you had a piece of garbage for your coaxial feeding the antenna. So for ham radio operators, this is probably an important area they would like to check. And some people like to have a specific length of coax for different bands, feeling that this would be helpful in their long-distance DX communication. I'm not into that part so myself. It's just to be sure I got good coax, no losses, no damage, no kinks, stuff like that. So I would then turn transform on, and this will convert the measured data into time domain. Yeah, so it immediately converts the time domain and displays it. So, and apparently there's for accuracy, the first thing you gotta do is you gotta set the start frequency to, I believe it's 50 kilohertz. I'll have to look that up. I believe that's what it is. And then the stop. The shorter the measurement frequency, the longer the maximum time length. And then So let me understand this. A lower frequency to measure longer length and a higher frequency to measure a shorter length. So selecting frequency for testing is essential. I probably would have set this around 10 or 20 megahertz. Because I'm only talking about, in this case, about 100-foot of cable. So I think there is a formula that I could look up and will precisely tell me what frequency I should put her on. But I think the 50 kilohertz to 20 megahertz is going to be more than adequate. So that's where you gotta set, and it's also used for several other types of settings. Okay, yeah, I went and looked up the information, and I was correct. The start frequency must be set to 50 kilohertz, and the stop frequency must be set according to the distance to be measured. So it would change if I had was say 300 feet of coax or 100 feet of coax, then the frequency would change, and I believe there's a formula for it. But I believe in my case, I'm usually not over 100, so one value will be close enough. But if the figures I get don't seem right, I can always change the frequency to find out. So it's a little bit of playing around at first. Okay, there's another option here called window normal, which is probably what I will leave. It says the window could be used to smooth out this discontinuous measurement data. So no window, same as the rectangle window. That's when you set it to minimum. And apparently in normal and maximum, it changes the window size. Minimum is supposed to provide the highest resolution, maximum provides a higher dynamic range. So normal is in the middle, and for my case, normal will be adequate. Okay, the next one is velocity. This I probably would have to change. The velocity means the speed of the electromagnetic waves in a cable, and it varies depending on the material that's being used. So each cable should have that specification giving you the velocity factor. I think my RG213, I have to look it up, is 67%. So the default is 78. I would have to change that, but before I do that, I'll verify, look up the specs. And it's a percentage, so you don't use a decimal point. If I was to change it to, for example, 68, I would enter 68. Let me do that right now and see what happens. 68. Oh, maybe I had to hit percent. Okay. There you go. Oh, there, that didn't work. Let me try this again. 68. Oh, I did it back. That's why. There you go. I was correct the first time. This is I didn't hit the percentage, which was the return key. These little things you have to learn. I don't consider myself to be an expert. The things that I want to do, I know enough. That's the main thing. Okay. This is where we can now save our calibration. I'm just wondering, I think we have 5 calibration. We're going to can recall. You can verify that. Anyways, this is what will be saved in your calibration data. Your frequency range setting, error correction at each measuring point, trace settings, marker settings, and domain mode settings, and electrical delay. And if you want to save that, you gotta go back, and I think I gotta go back some more. Back, I believe it's Cal, save. There we go. I think there's one more area where we can be familiar. Markers. Oops. Select markers. Okay, where are markers? We have 8. They're those little small diamond indicators, like this one here. So you could have 8 of them. And then you can set what you want those markers to do. You can set the start, you can set the stop, you can set the center, and the span. To use a span, I think you need at least 2 markers. It's a handy tool. I find I'm only using 1 or 2 markers, so I can kind of just move it along. But it's there. Yeah, this unit is certainly capable, probably more than I ever will need. But the price is basically the same. So you can get cheaper units, may have a little bit less options, but it probably will work fine for most. It's what you find that you need. In my case, I like a large display, and I know when I start using it for actual testing there in the near future, I'll have this hooked up to my computer. It'll be easier, and it gives me a little bit more manipulation. So this is basically a quick rundown how to access the different menus and what they're supposed to do. Knowing this usually is a good start. Later on, when I actually do some of my actual measurements that I need to verify, I will record it and demo how I did it. And if anyone has any feedback or ideas, let me know. I'm here to learn and to share. Have a nice day.